seated. Let me say this to you. I read something this week that I thought was pretty amazing. If a church reaches 100 children, the church will gain 3 new families in that church. That's pretty good. How many think that's pretty good? If a church reaches 100 women, the church will gain 60 new families. If a church reaches 100 men, 93 new families will be reached. You say, well, Pastor, what is the point in all that? Us men are stubborn, bullheaded, difficult. Huh? Sometimes we have the title of all the women in the house are saying amen. I don't know what the men are doing. We know the way. We don't need anybody else. We don't need anybody else on the journey with us. We got it all covered. We got it all figured out. But at the end of the day, we spend a lot of our times leading in everything but spiritual. Leading in everything but the areas that our wives want us to lead the most and our children desperately need us to lead the most. Men, I'm telling you, this is a great place for you to get plugged in, connected. This is a very holistic church. This is not a church just for women to come and sing hymns or sing whatever. And our women's ministry is strong, amen? But I'm going to tell you, they're loud too. But I got to tell you, at the end of the day, there's something strong and something powerful about when men will lead their families to Jesus and men will lead their children to find Jesus. Are y'all with me today? All right, let's level up. Everybody say level up. In standardized math tests, Japanese children consistently score higher than their American counterparts. Some assume that a natural proclivity toward mathematics is the primary difference. How many of you like math? Let me see your hand. How many of you hate math? It's okay. Researchers have discovered that it may have more to do with effort than ability. Everybody say effort. Oh, I could spend a whole sermon teaching on effort, but I won't. In one study involving first graders, students were given a difficult puzzle to solve. The researchers weren't interested in whether or not the children could solve the puzzle. They simply wanted to see how long the children would try before they gave up. The American children, on average, went 9.47 minutes until Fortnite started calling. I just added that in. The Japanese children went 13.93 minutes. In other words, the Japanese children tried 47% longer than American children did. Researchers concluded that the difference in math scores might have less to do with intelligent quotients and more to do with persistence. The Japanese first graders simply tried harder. The study not only explains the difference in standardized math scores. How many of you have ever taken a standardized test? Let me see your hand. I hate them. I like to write my way out of stuff. The implications are true no matter where you turn. It doesn't matter whether it's athletics or academics, math or music. There are no shortcuts. There are no substitutes to you becoming the best at what you can do and being the best at who God has called you to be. Then why is it that we will often settle into that great big middle place of life called average? Everybody say average. You're not born and get into kindergarten and first grade and go, I'm going to be the average person. I'm going to be the greatest average on the planet. You don't excel or work very hard in your life to be average, but there comes a certain time in our life, and I don't know when it is for you, and I can go back to when it was for me, that we just kind of settle in. We just kind of coast into that place, and we just kind of exist or live for a longer period of time, but we just kind of become comfortable with the average. We we settle for the shortcuts and the substitutes when really we should be pursuing in hot pursuit to be the greatest of who we can be. Are y'all with me today? Say amen. This series, Level Up, is designed, I'm telling you, God birthed it in my spirit while I was on sabbatical. We cannot settle for where we are. Our church cannot settle for where we are at as a church. And by the way, our church is well above average. The average church in America is 90 people. So if you're just measuring it by people, Church Alive is well above average. But we can't just sit down, pat ourselves on the back, call it a day, and say we've influenced this region, now let somebody else rise to the occasion when God is calling us throughout our entire life to rise. Everybody say rise. Moses and the children of God find themselves 3 months removed from Egypt, the place of bondage, the place of slavery, and they're here in a desert. Everybody say desert. They've moved away from what they're familiar with. I want you to think about what it is in your life that you're familiar with and what you like about it, but what might not be good about it, what might be causing you to not go to the next level of your life. The familiar place, it can be a difficult place, but it can be a safe place. A lot of people, I crack up sometimes when I hear about all these safe spaces. We didn't have safe spaces when I was a kid. And being around your grandmama with a weeping willow switch was not a safe place. We didn't create little rooms to run into and try to figure out this or that. We had to kind of tackle things as they came along. Maybe you weren't raised that way, but I was raised that way and in that way. But we'd rather kind of hang out in the safe place instead of navigating the unknown, knowing that God's already in our future. How many of you know that God's already in your future? He's already there. There's a lot of uncertainties about it, but we need to figure out if we're going to level up or we're going to hang out in the desert. See, this is where the children of God find themselves. They're in the desert. This desert is the in-between place. It's in between bondage and breakthrough. And see, it can become a very wide space that we live in, and we never really fully experience breakthrough, and we never fully ever give up bondage. That's really what the desert is. But what it does, the desert, it's flat. It doesn't take much to navigate it in relationship to moving along because it's flat, but it's hot, dry. It can wring you out. Maybe today you're in this place and you feel somewhat wrung out spiritually, or you haven't been challenged spiritually. By the way, if you came to Church Alive thinking that you wouldn't be challenged, this is not a good day to be here at Church Alive. God, I believe every time we gather together, God wants to challenge us. He's not interested in whether we feel good or feel this or that. He wants us to be challenged because sometimes it's that challenge in our life that will cause us to move away from the desert that we live in. Here's the deal. How often have we been touched by the power of God in our lives? How many of you have ever been touched by the power of God? I got to tie my shoe, by the way. I know some of you thinking, Pastor, would you please tie your shoe? Give me just a second here. I don't know why my shoe's untied. There we go. I can teach you how to tie your shoe. How many times have we been touched by the power of God and we started to navigate into unknown places and then all of a sudden fear and concern overwhelmed us, or we get outside of the place that we know, and we venture into the unknown. Back in Egypt, the children of God, they were fed, they were looked after, they were secure in their position, but they were not free. Everybody say free. Freedom comes often at a high price. Everybody say high price. Oh, but can I tell you spiritually, the price has already been paid for you to be free? Can I tell you spiritually, there is one that has already gone and paid the way and made the way for you and I to walk in freedom? Can somebody say amen? 3 months into the journey, and here they are in the desert. What does Moses do? Moses levels up. Everybody say levels up. I want to challenge you today and in the next several weeks to level up in your life. Not settle for this flat space that you're in, this comfortable zone, maybe the desert that you're in, but to level. Look at Exodus chapter 19, verse 3. Then Moses went up to God. It doesn't say Moses went down to God. It doesn't say Moses came down to, or God came down to where Moses was at. Moses had to make the move. Moses had to move and position himself in the place where God was. And the Lord called to him from the mountain and said, this is what you are to say to the house of Jacob and what you are to tell the people of Israel. You yourselves have seen what I did in Egypt and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then Out of all nations, you will be my treasured possession. I think we miss that. You see, God says to Moses, tell the people this, if. Everybody say if. It's a big if, but here's the if. If you will obey me, if you will track with me, if you will move with me, if you will trust me, if you'll do what I tell you what to do, then you will be my treasure possession. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words you are to speak to the Israelites. 3 things I want to talk to you today about leveling up to high places. Everybody say high places. Moses went into the mountain where the Shekinah was, the glory cloud. Everybody say glory cloud. Now listen, in the New Testament, Jesus makes it very plain and clear. He comes to where we are. Listen, are y'all with me today? There's a transition between the Old Testament and the New Testament. Aren't you glad that Jesus connects with you right where you are? Aren't you glad that he will find you? You may be at the darkest, most deep, desperate place in your life, but I'm telling you, Jesus can find you. There is no place you can go that Jesus cannot meet you there and he can't find you. In fact, he finds me sometimes on my tractor. He finds me on the golf course. He finds me at church. I mean, he finds me all the time in all kinds of places. He is not limited. But here in this context and in this situation, there's something that we have to do. There'll be seasons in our life where we get dry and we find things difficult, and we need to find where the presence of God is. Now, I don't know where the presence of God is for you, but I know where in the past there have been times where I've found the presence of the Lord. So I'll go back to those places. I'll go back and I'll revisit those places and I'll have a conversation with God. And you say, well, Pastor, do you really believe that you should have a conversation with God? Do you really believe that God hears you? I emphatically believe that God hears us. Are you with me? Say amen. And if I want to go to the next level, if I want to level up, if I want to get away from this desert place that I'm in, I need to connect with God. So here's what happens when we level up into high places. We reset. Everybody say reset. Just before Moses went to the mountain, again, they were in the desert. There needs to be a reset here. I've gotten myself into this situation. I'm not really sensing God. Isn't it amazing how you can do some of the very same things in your life and feel very close to God, and then at other seasons in your life be doing the same very things and not feel God at all? Do you find that? I find that fascinating. I'm like, God, I'm reading your Bible. I'm praying. I'm being a faithful husband. I'm doing this. I'm doing all the right things, but I don't sense that you're known. There'll be other times I'm praying and reading the Bible and being a faithful husband, and I feel very close to God. What is it about it? What has shifted? What has changed? How am I supposed to deal with that? It causes me to realize I got to hit the reset button sometimes in my life. Laura and I hit the reset button in July. We went on sabbatical and we put everything on the table. We put our marriage. We talked about our marriage. Sometimes the greatest thing you can do with your marriage is talk. Here's how men talk. Yes, no, maybe. Yes, I'm in favor, yes. Not very much conversation, but I decided I was going to talk. I decided we were going to have a conversation, and it wasn't just going to be one person doing the talking and then the other person just adding every once in a while a little word. Yes. No. Maybe. You see, because I made a decision a long time ago when I married Laura, and she chose to follow me down this path of life. Our decision was we had to do this together because we are better together. Hear me on this. Your spouse makes you better. They should. Your spouse makes you complete. And sometimes, we'll go through seasons and I'm like, good gracious, I don't feel as connected to Laura as I need to feel. I don't and I have to kind of look at myself. I kind of have to look at me and figure it out, because my love language is different than Laura's, by the way. She's touchy and feely. I am not. I like words of affirmation and I like quality time. Amen. All right, go golfing with me. Whew. But I'm not the touchy-feely one. She likes the touchy-feely, so I have to remind myself, I got to reset, because I don't need it. Sometimes I won't give it. See, that's what we do. Whatever we need in our life, that's usually what we give to our spouse, but our spouse is probably completely opposite from us, and they're going, I don't care about that. Can you just hold my hand? Oh, yeah, let's go. Are y'all with me today? We had to reset. I had to reset and think about myself as a father. I want to be the greatest dad on the planet. I do not believe I have that one licked yet. I don't believe I'm the greatest dad on the planet. I try. I work hard at it. I want to be the greatest pastor that I can be. I had to reset. And there comes times in our life when we have to go find where God is and we have to hit the reset button. And we have to be honest and say, God, I don't know what's next. I don't know how to get to the next level. I know you do, so I gotta have this moment. I gotta have this time where I'm connecting with you so that I can reset in my life. Are y'all with me today? Do you know we could pat ourselves on the back as a church and go, man, we have arrived, we have done it. We don't have time to do that. Are y'all with me, church? We don't have the time to do. There's so many great churches around here, and you can go to any church you want to go to and get connected at any level you want to get connected with. But for Church Alive, we got to stay committed and connected with God in order to have the greatest impact here in the region that we can, because quite frankly, we're not alive long enough to do anything else. I mean, we have a very short lifespan here when it comes out. Look at what Psalm 16:11 says. You have made known to me the path of life. Boom! I guarantee you, if you are struggling with something in your life and you're in a desert place, God will make known to you the path of life. And it's not a new path, it's the path you already know. Hello? I can't expect my wife to respond to me positively if I'm bringing a bad attitude into that moment all the time. Hello? And vice versa. There's got to be a time where we reset and we actually work towards that. Listen to what he says, you will fill me with joy in your presence. Boom. How many of you like to sense joy in your life? You know what joy is? It's contentment. How many of you like to be content? I do. I like contentment. With eternal pleasures at your right hand. It is in the presence of God that I will find the strength and the joy necessary for me to move forward into this next level, leveling up. The second thing, reset, then I reconnect. Everybody say reconnect. No, I like to think that God and I are on a pretty good enough level that He already understands everything about me, and so I don't really need to talk to Him about it. You see, sometimes we approach God that way. He already knows us. He already knows our struggle. He already knows what the issues are in my life. He already knows I'm not being this or I'm not being that or I'm doing too much of this. I don't need to talk to Him. There are times I just simply need to reconnect with God. I told you the story last week. You should go back and listen to the podcast if you were not here. I argued with God. God finally spoke to me through a text. Don't tell me God doesn't text. He will text you through somebody else and get the word to you. It's all right. I've got this. It's not about you. It's about me, and it's about what I've asked you to do and my great big plan, and I need you to trust me, and I need you to take hold of that, and I need to remind you that great things will happen if you will do that. Are you with me? Say amen. Boy, did I have a reconnection with God. Right there on my tractor. No bones about it. Got off my tractor and looked to the heavens. Nobody was there. I don't care if there was 5,000 people there. And said, God, you have heard me and you have answered me. We can do this. Notice I said we can do this. He's already known He can do it. I just kind of have to catch up to Him. And so Moses here is leading a bunch of people that want to go back. How often do we want to go back? Let's go back. I want to go back to what I'm familiar with. Let me go back to that place. Even though I know it's not good for me, I'll go back to it. We don't need to go back. We need to go forward. And if we're going to go forward in the right capacity, in the right way, we need to reconnect with God. Moses has a track record of wild encounters with God. Remember the burning bush? Poof, this thing's burning up and nothing's burning. Do you know that when I was on sabbatical, I'm minding my own business and I have a wild encounter with God? I was in Haiti. Now listen, the person that I was talking to, I don't even know if they're born again. You say, well, Pastor, God can't speak to us unless somebody's born again or walking close to Him. Are you out of your mind? The dude was talking, I was mesmerized. And in that moment, I don't even know why I was there. It wasn't really in my whole thought processes and plans, but I realized there's something bigger going on here. And if he'd have given an altar call, I would have ran to the front right then. He didn't. I wasn't even in a church service. I was nowhere near anything close to what church looks like. This guy's talking, and at the end of it, I went to him. and I had a conversation with him. And the Lord, when I went back to where I was at, the Lord spoke to me. And here's what the Lord said. And this was like a powerful moment for me. I want you to always remember how blessed you are. Because when I was talking to this man, I realized how dark and how difficult it would be to live in Haiti, to do life there, to not be able to read. There is no hope if you cannot read. Are y'all with me? There's no natural hope there. 80% unemployment. 80% unemployment. Yet the people were filled with joy. I was like, what are you happy about? I don't think I'd be too happy if I lived in a country of 80% unemployment. Come on now. The Lord spoke to me. Joy and contentment can come in a whole lot of different angles than just the things that we think that it has to come from. But you need to remember how blessed you are. So the first time my children developed the Eeyore spirit. You know, children become connected with Eeyore right away. And then we carry it into our adult life, and nobody wants to be around you. I promise you, I run from the spirit. I cannot handle, I'm so tired. Things are so bad. I can't stand it. It'll suck you dry. What did I just draw? Nothing. Is the floor caving in here? First time my child developed an Eeyore, so I said, boy, let me tell you something. Let me tell you what it's like to live in Haiti. Her eyes got really big. I said, don't you ever say you're not blessed. Don't you ever say that you are not blessed beyond measure. And it took my reconnection. It took that right there for me to reconnect with God on that level. Are y'all with me today? Third thing is this revelation. Everybody say revelation. And this one's huge. And I love when God brings revelation. And often it's not a new revelation. It's just kind of reminding us of what he's already spoken. But here it comes on the heels of this. What am I supposed to do? What's next? How am I supposed to approach life from this angle? The people were relying on Moses, and Moses needed to hear from God. Let me say this to you in the house. Your children are relying on you to declare the word of God over their life, mom and dad. Let me tell you this right now. Oh, listen, I love all kinds of things about life. I love sports. But my children don't necessarily need me to tell them and remind them who the starting 5 basketball players are for the University of North Carolina Tar Heels, or the NC State Wolfpack, or that other team over there somewhere in Durham, Duke. They don't need to. That's all great and good, but what I need to be declaring over my life is greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. You can overcome. God has called you to be an overcomer. Greater love has no one than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. So I can teach my children a lot, and I hope I do, and I hope they learn a lot from me. But at the end of the day, what they need from me is they need to hear the word of the Lord. They need to hear me declaring the word of the Lord over their life. Because when the rubber meets the road, I could care less what they do in their life as long as it's ethical, moral, and honest. I don't care what career path they take. I want them to know God. I want them to have their family in church. I want them to lead their family to where God is. That's what's most important to me. At the end of the day, when I'm close to pushing up daisies, at the end of the day, that's what's most important to me, that my children would know God and follow hard after him. And here's what God said. I want to remind you. Everybody say remind. God will remind us of past victories to keep our focus on the victor. He said, I want to remind you the flight from Egypt was impossible. I don't know if you realize this, and by the way, for those of you that are still skeptical about Jesus in the Bible is impeccably accurate historically. It is from secular all the way, it is an amazing accurate document. The Egyptians were the most powerful army on the planet. There is no way that a bunch of enslaved Israelites who have no ammunition and have no strength, no courage, and no power is ever going to overcome this army, except that their God is a God of possibilities. Except that their God is greater than that which holds them back, that which binds them, that which enslaves them. Can I tell you today, your God is greater. The God of the universe is greater than that which holds you back, than that which keeps you held down. I'm telling you, it's going to take him to move you from that place to the path that he has for you. he talks to them about an eagle. Do you know what? An eagle is a very large bird of prey. We have a bunch of hawks out where I live, and so we had a litter of puppies 2 years ago, and I had to keep my eye on the puppies because hawks will eat puppies. I read a story about the little family in Apex that lost their chihuahua to the big bird of prey. Could you imagine? I drove down the path to my house the other day. I always see stuff. There was a bear not too far from where we were back in late June, so I know they're out there. And I saw this hawk fly. It was hovering real low to the ground, and it had a squirrel. I'm like, poor little squirrel. He is never going to break free from the talons of that hawk. I mean, that hawk was going to dine on that squirrel and probably feed some to his chicklets, or whatever you call them, hawklets. Do you know eagles teach their eaglets to fly by putting them on their wings and then dropping them? And then they swoop down and they will pick them back up. Pretty powerful. That's a picture of what God says. Remember, I brought you out of Egypt and you were afraid, and I'm going to teach you how to do this. I'm going to teach you how to approach life from an angle and a perspective. And if you'll listen to me and you'll obey me, you're going to be able to soar incredibly high, and you're going to be able to do incredible things. Isaiah 40, verse 31, but those who hope in the Lord. Man, I love that song we sang this morning. I'm like, yes, I have great hope. Y'all remember that song? Third song we sang, don't know the title of it, but I call it Hope. Love it. Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. There's an old story, I don't know whether it's true or not, but I want to share this with you because when I read it, I thought it was amazing. About eagles. When they turn the age of 30 to 50, it is said that an eagle will fly to a high place where it endures a harsh trial of endurance and change. It can't fly because its feathers are overgrown. Therefore, it plucks all the feathers from its body. It plucks its talons from its feet because the talons have grown curled and useless. Its beak has grown too long and curled. It breaks its beak against a rock. Defenseless, it cries out and waits for the time of renewal. Other eagles hear it crying and come to aid. They fly overhead, scaring off predators, and they bring food to their incapacitated friend. Now, whether that story is true or not, I thought, how powerful is that? And how powerful is the imagery of this? Listen, you might be young in this room. I was young. I am young. I am still young. Just not as young as some of you. When you're young, you think you got it all and you can connect and you don't need anything and you've got everything it takes. But then one day you wake up and you realize, and it won't happen too long down the road, you're not so young anymore. What happens? Life happens. And there will come times in your life where you need to renew your strength. And in order to renew your strength, you may have to take some things off of you and cast some things down that you've allowed in your life or allowed authority in your life, if you will. You need to put those things down and you need to focus on what is necessary in order for you to lighten the load so that you can soar to the places you need to soar. Are y'all with me today? This series is about leveling up. Can I get the band to come out? This teaching is about leveling up. It's about not being satisfied with the status quo. I am never satisfied with the status quo. I hope I never am. I was told when I was a younger man that I would grow out of it. I have not grown out of it yet. The other day, we were sitting around and one of my sons were talking to me about how he's budgeting his money. And I've tried very hard to work with my children about budgeting, and he's very good at it. But he was telling me how about everything that he has to spend his money on. And I'm like, welcome to adulting. Welcome to the real world. Because if you're segueing that into me paying for something else, I ain't doing it. It is over. Wait till Christmas. I will bless you. Y'all know what I'm talking about. But as I sat there and I listened, he turned the conversation and he thought, I got to make sure I'm disciplined. And I looked at him and I said, son, as long as you keep God at the center of your life, do what you do what you know to do what's right, God will bless you. He'll put you in great places of favor. When I look at our church, I see great things this church does. And I'm like, yes, I'm so excited to be a part of this church. I mean, one of the first things I was able to do when I got back on the ground was go to Soul Missions. Boom. I had to jet out just a little early because my son's playing football and it was 110 degrees yesterday. Not really, but it felt like it. They had a scrimmage and I'm like dying over here. But as I was watching him and cheering him on, I was thinking about how awesome it is to be able to still do that as a dad. I still got one in the fold, still doing it. But how awesome yesterday. My heart was so full. And I'm like, God, take us to another level, even in our soul missions. Take us to another level in our worship. Take us to another level in our influence in this region. How do we influence this region in greater measure, in greater ways? How do we do this? What do we do? In this teaching series, I'm telling you, bring your steel-toed boots because it's going to get tough, but God is wanting to speak to us. He's wanting us to be willing to take it to another level, to level up. Would you stand with me?